I still remember the sound of the clay pot smashing against the wall. Chioma's husband had thrown it, screaming at her as she begged on her knees. "You're a curse," he shouted. "You have brought nothing but shame to this family." It wasn't the first time he'd humiliated her, but this time felt different. His mother, Mama Ejika, stood behind him, nodding in agreement. "How many more chances will you give her?" she asked, her voice dripping with disdain. 4 pregnancies and 4 dead babies. Do you want to wait until she destroys your lineage completely? The words cut through the air like a knife. Chioma was sobbing so hard that she could barely speak. "I've tried," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I've prayed, I've done everything." "Enough," her husband barked. He grabbed her by the arm and dragged her outside. "You're no wife of mine anymore. I was just a girl then, maybe 11 or 12, peeking from behind the mango tree in my father's compound. I didn't fully understand what was happening, but I knew it wasn't right." Chioma was barefoot and shivering, clutching a small bundle of clothes to her chest. Her husband slammed the door behind her, and that was it. She had no family in the village, no one to turn to. The whole village was watching. Some people stood at their doorways, others peered from behind trees. No one said a word. No one stepped in. A woman who couldn't give her husband a child was considered a failure, no matter how kind or hard-working she was. And Chioma? Chioma had always been kind. Her belongings were thrown after her, clothes, a cooking pot, a few other things. It wasn't much. "Go back to wherever you came from," Mama Ejika hissed, slamming the door shut. And just like that, Chioma was gone. Chioma spent the first night curled under a tree near the village's edge. The ground was cold and damp, and mosquitoes buzzed around her ears. She didn't sleep much. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard her husband's voice calling her a failure. She wondered if she truly was cursed. The next day, she wandered further from the village. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she couldn't stay where everyone knew her shame. She walked until her legs ached and her feet were blistered. By the 3rd day, she had eaten nothing but wild fruits and drank from a muddy stream. People she passed looked at her with pity but didn't offer help. In their eyes, a childless woman was as good as invisible. Chioma didn't blame them. She had nothing to give in return. On the 5th day, Chioma felt the first sign. A wave of nausea hit her so suddenly that she had to sit down under a tree. Her hands instinctively went to her stomach. Could it be? She counted the days in her head, thinking back to the last time she'd bled. It had been over 2 months. Her heart raced. She should have felt joy, but all she felt was fear. She had been here before. 4 times she had carried life inside her, only to lose it before it could be born. Why would this time be any different? But there was a small part of her that dared to hope. That night, as Chioma lay staring at the stars, she thought of Allah, the goddess of fertility and justice. Stories of Allah's shrine had been told to her as a child. Women who had been barren for years went there and returned with children. Those who had been wronged found justice. Chioma decided she had nothing to lose. If the goddess could help her, she would do whatever was required, even if it meant giving up the child she longed for. The shrine of Allah was deep in the forest, far from the village. The path was dangerous, full of wild animals and thieves. But Chioma didn't hesitate. She tied her few belongings into a bundle and began her journey. The forest was dark and thick, the trees so tall that they blocked out the sunlight. Every rustle of leaves made her heart race, but she pressed on. Her feet bled, her stomach growled, but she didn't stop. She had a purpose now. She was no longer wandering aimlessly. One night, as Chioma sat by a small fire she'd made, she felt eyes on her. She turned quickly, but there was no one there. Then she heard a whisper, soft and low, like the wind through the trees. It wasn't a language she understood, but it didn't feel threatening. The whispers grew louder, and the flames of her fire flickered as if caught in a sudden breeze. Chioma closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. When she opened them again, the forest was silent. After days of walking, Chioma finally reached the shrine. It was a simple structure made of clay and thatch, surrounded by tall irako trees. The priestess was sitting outside, her white robes glowing in the moonlight. She was an old woman, her face lined with wisdom. "I know why you've come," the priestess said before Chioma could speak. Her voice was soft but firm. "You seek the goddess's blessing." Chioma fell to her knees. "Please," she begged. "I've lost 4 children. I've lost my home. I'll do anything to protect this child." The priestess studied her for a long moment. "Alsa has heard you," she said. "But know this, the child will not belong to you. He will belong to the gods." Chioma nodded. "I understand. I promise." The priestess took Chioma inside the shrine and performed a ritual. She marked Chioma's forehead with white chalk and tied a string of cowries around her wrist. "This will protect you until the child is born," she said. "Thank you," Chioma whispered. "Remember your promise," the priestess warned. "If you break it, the gods will not forgive you." The priestess allowed Chioma to stay near the shrine. There was a small hut nearby, meant for travelers seeking the goddess's help. Chioma made it her home, gathering wild fruits and learning to trap small animals. It wasn't easy, but she was determined. Her belly grew with each passing month. The villagers who visited the shrine often looked at her curiously but said nothing. Chioma avoided their gazes, focusing on her prayers and chores. She feared drawing attention to herself, worried that someone might try to harm her or the child. The night the child was born, the forest came alive. Thunder rumbled and lightning lit up the sky. The rain poured so heavily that it felt like the heavens were weeping. Chioma's labor pains began just as the storm reached its peak. The priestess was there, guiding her through every contraction. "Breathe, child," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos outside. "The gods are watching." After hours of pain, Chioma's cries were replaced by the wail of a newborn. The priestess held up the baby, her face a mix of awe and reverence. "Allah has blessed you," she said. Chioma's eyes widened as she saw the mark on the baby's right shoulder. A snake tattoo, coiled and intricate, glowing faintly in the dim light. "He is not an ordinary child," the priestess whispered. "He belongs to the gods." Chioma cradled her son in her arms, tears streaming down her face. She felt both joy and dread. The priestess warned her again, "You must remember this child's destiny lies beyond you. You cannot keep him forever." For weeks, Chioma nurtured the boy, naming him Nkem, meaning mine. But she knew in her heart that he was not truly hers. Nkem grew quickly, far faster than normal children. By his first month, he was speaking in full sentences, his words carrying wisdom beyond his years. The villagers whispered about the child of the forest, fearing and revering him. Some claimed he was a blessing. Others called him an omen. But Chioma cared only for the moments they shared, even as she felt the weight of her promise to the gods looming over her. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the forest seemed to come alive again. The same whispers Chioma had heard during her journey returned, louder and clearer. This time they spoke her name. By the time Nkem was a year old, his gifts were undeniable. He could call animals to him with a simple whistle. Birds perched on his shoulders, and even the most cautious of deer approached him without fear. His snake-shaped birthmark seemed to shimmer faintly whenever he was in deep thought or prayer. Nkem's wisdom left adults speechless. When a villager sought advice from the priestess about a conflict, Nkem spoke before the priestess could. "Forgiveness is harder than revenge, but it lasts longer," he said simply, and the villagers marveled. Despite his gifts, Nkem remained humble. "I am only a servant of the gods," he would say, a phrase he seemed to have been born knowing. News of Nkem's existence eventually reached Chioma's former village. Mama Ejika, Chioma's mother-in-law, was the first to hear the rumors. "A child born in the forest with the mark of the gods?" she scoffed. But as the story spread, her curiosity grew. One day she confronted her son, Chioma's ex-husband. "If this is true, that child is yours," she declared. "We must bring him back. He could restore our family's honor." Her son was skeptical but agreed to investigate. Together they made the journey to the shrine. When they arrived at the shrine, Chioma was outside, grinding millet. She froze when she saw them. Her ex-husband's voice was cold. "Is it true, Chioma? Have you borne a child?" Before Chioma could respond, Nkem stepped out from behind the hut. His gaze was calm but piercing. "You abandoned her," he said, his voice steady despite his young age. "You have no claim over me." Mama Ejika gasped when she saw the glowing birthmark on Nkem's shoulder. "He truly is a child of the gods," she whispered. Chioma stood protectively in front of her son. "You have no right to him," she said firmly. The priestess emerged from the shrine. "Leave," she commanded. "This boy's destiny is not tied to your greed." Her words left no room for argument. Defeated, Chioma's ex-husband and his mother retreated, though Mama Ejika vowed to return. As Nkem grew, he began to hear whispers in his dreams. The gods were calling him, reminding him of the promise made before his birth. One night he woke Chioma. "Mama, it's time," he said. Chioma's heart sank. She knew this day would come, but she wasn't ready to let him go. "Where will you go?" she asked, her voice trembling. "To serve the gods," Nkem replied. "But I will always carry your love with me." The next morning, Nkem and the priestess departed for the sacred mountain, where he would begin his journey as a servant of the gods. Chioma returned to her village after Nkem's departure. She held her head high, no longer the woman cast out in shame. Though she missed her son dearly, she found solace in the knowledge that he was fulfilling his destiny. Over time, the villagers came to respect her for her character and strength. Women who faced struggles of their own sought her counsel, and Chioma became known as a symbol of hope and perseverance. Years later, stories of Nkem, the child of the gods, spread far and wide. He was said to have brought rain during droughts, healed the sick, and mediated peace between warring villages. But to Chioma he would always be her son, the boy she fought to bring into the world, the boy who taught her the true meaning of sacrifice and love. And so, the tale of Chioma and Nkem became a story passed down through generations, a reminder of the power of faith, hope, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child.